The Rise of the Maturepreneur and How Boomers Are Reshaping Our Economy is the title of today's interview. And boy, do I love our guests. Hashtag not done by a long shot. Exactly what I believe, and I hope you will be inspired here. So buckle your seatbelts and let's go from undervalued to undenied, as Jeanette says. So today we welcome Jannette Anderson. She's a business development expert with over 40 years of strategic planning, sales, marketing experience, and she still is, as she says herself, stupidly in love with helping entrepreneurs make a meaningful difference and a magnificent living. But before we get into this rise of the maturepreneur, Jeanette, I'd like to invite you to share a bit in your own words, who you are, maybe where you are, and why you do what you do.
All right. Well, as we discussed earlier, I love talking about my why and about why, because I think that is so important, especially these days. So hello and thank you, Julie. I'm so happy to get to know you. You're delightful. So I am currently in Calgary, Alberta, and I always preface that with currently because I am what I call polyhomous. I used to say homeless and people would get very concerned and their brow would furrow. And now I say polyhomous and they just get confused and they tilt their head because they're not sure if that's kinky or not. It just means that I'm
Yes.
a digital nomad and that I live in various places. I'm based out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, but I'm pathologically allergic to winter, so I tend to run away if I can. I'm a little less I'm unwilling to run away to the States right now. So that's curtailed my winter a bit. However, I did just get back from 2 weeks in Mexico. So that was a nice break.
Oh,
So, in terms of what I do and my why, half of my life has been in personal development facilitation and teaching coaching certification and coaching programs and so forth. The other half, so I call that the inner work, the other half of my life for over 40 years has been business startup and turnaround and really helping entrepreneurs figure out how to share their gifts and their passion. And as you said, I still love what I do. So my specialty is getting the 4 inches between your ears working so the business can work. A little while ago, so I was predominantly serving women for over a decade because of a download that I got that's what I should do, even though I resisted it mightily, very stubborn. And I'd get the call and I go, but I don't really like women, go away, and I'd hang up the call and it'd be, but there's so many women's groups back when there was like
yeah.
4 million, right? I finally ever so graciously surrendered and said, okay, piss off, leave me alone, I'll do it. And then when I stepped in, I understood why women, why now, and why me. And a lot of that was to do with women redefining business and how we interact societally and shifting towards a more creative, collaborative concept, and really understanding that we are in one large global community and we cannot do the us and them stuff. It's too detrimental on every level,
Yeah.
economic, societal, energetic, every level. And in 2020, I was on a business cruise, and yes, it was a business cruise, a lot of work, the marketers cruise. There was 450 of us from all around the world.
Wow.
I was at the networking event called Pizza and Profits at 11 o'clock at night. It starts.
Oh, God.
I know, and goes till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And I was in a group of three guys, and one asked, "What do you do?" And I was mid sentence answering him, and he turned and started talking to someone else. I was like, "Oh, rude." And
Rude.
so I excused myself ever so politely, as a Canadian would, and didn't say anything, walked to the next group. And lo and behold, the same thing happened. So then I was like, okay, they can't all be dicks. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not
Yeah.
showing up. But I have blue hair. I'm pretty big and loud and present, and it's hard to miss me.
Yeah.
And so it's like, nope, it's not that. So I got curious and started to observe. And what I saw, Julie, was that everybody on that cruise in 2020 who was over 60 was pretty much ignored and, in fact, downright invisible, especially the women with gray hair. Like, I was literally at dinner table and there was two of them at the other end of the table, an eight top, and no one talked to them through the whole dinner. And midway, I shouted down and said, "Hey, how are you two?" And the two people across from them kind of went like this, like they
Yeah.
literally didn't see them. And so
Awful.
I was like, okay, well, this nonsense has to end. Um,
Right.
the ageism is not okay. Yeah, I notionally knew about ageism, but when something smacks you in the face,
Yeah.
it's a lot
It's
more
hard to see it really blatantly, isn't it? It's often something that you feel and you're not sure, but in this case, that was pretty clear.
pretty clear. So I started to get very curious and investigate. And what I discovered was that there is this incredible, I call it the perfect storm of opportunity going on in the world right now that is two global epidemics and two global trends that are happening to kind of converge and create a really unique time in history that no one's paying attention to. And it's like, okay, no, that's not okay either. So I
Yeah.
got very passionate about supporting maturepreneurs who are, I define as those who are 55 plus and hashtag not done by a long shot.
And there's more and more of us, right?
Yes, exactly. More and more. Well, and to come back to your question around why. Now, my definition of your why is different than a lot of people. One of my titles is the Why Whisperer, and my definition is it is the intersection of what you're healing from the past and what you long for the future for yourself and others. The intersection of what you're healing from the past and what you long for the future for yourself and others. And I think our why is a consistent thread that weaves through the tapestry of our life. It doesn't change. It's something that it is that nexus point that we are learning about in this lifetime, or that we're here to explore for God, or that is our mission, however you think of it. But it's that intersection. It's not what we do. It's not how we do.
No, yeah.
It's why we do it. And our stand is our current expression of it. And that changes over time. How we live into our why changes
Right.
constantly. You know, whether you're living into it as a parent or a community member or in this career or in that business, that changes. But the why itself doesn't. So my why is basically very simply that I want you to get that you matter and live like you do. And the
Right.
reason that that has been a driving force in my life is because I always wanted to matter. I wanted to
Right.
get on the list. Never mind the top of the list. I just wanted to get on the list, Julie.
Yeah.
And so I see that longing in others. I
It's
hear that,
significance in a way, isn't
yeah,
it? It's being
exactly.
significant.
And meaning and wanting to,
Yeah.
yeah, wanting to have meaning and be meaningful. And
Right.
so that kind of, I mean, that's where I started in my life. And now it comes full circle, because one of the things that's so important about maturepreneurs and older people in general is we do so much better when we have meaning and purpose in our life. So
Yes.
does
Yes.
everyone, but
Yes.
especially now, the people who have meaning in their life live 7 qualitative years longer. They're happier, they're healthier. And those who are lonely, isolated, and without purpose live 8 years less, and
Right.
typically very not good 8 years. They're unhappy, unhealthy. And the World Health Organization equates being lonely to the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day in
Oh my
terms
goodness.
of impact on our health and well-being. And 1 in 3 people in North America, or 1 in 4, depends on where you are geographically, says that they're lonely. So a
Yeah.
portion of the population, and many of those are older people. Many
Yes.
are entrepreneurs who work on their own, and you put those two together, it's not a good combination.
No.
Yeah.
But yet there is so much that we can give, right? Because especially I always feel, after 50, for those who've had children or whatsoever, you're sort of half, right? So you've got your career and you're trying to juggle everything at the same time. But suddenly there's that feeling that also you want to contribute. I think that is also to do with significance. You want I mean, what I call significance is not like a status thing, it's the meaning, right? So it's you
Yes.
want your life to have meant something so that you want to pass on what it is that you've learned, and usually learned through the painful moments and the obstacles and all of that, and that makes a perfect group. Thank you for that absolutely beautiful definition of a why. I'm going to make sure I re-listen to this and I'm going to write it down, because that was really very powerful. Now, you're talking about the rise of the maturepreneur, right? And how boomers are reshaping our economy. So that's taking this, even further.
Right. Well, and I think, and so I'll talk about the two epidemics and the two trends, but then also why I think we are economic booms, not economic drains, which is how we're often positioned. So the two epidemics that I mentioned, one is the loneliness epidemic, and that is impacting how we do what we do as a society in a tremendous way, and not positively, right? Like it is
Yes.
very devastating situation globally. A lot of it was engendered by COVID and didn't get resolved since then. So we really need community and connection to combat that. The second epidemic is the poverty epidemic. Most people don't know that 65% of older people cannot afford to retire. Now, that number varies depending on where you are in the world. It's 50 to 90% in the United States, depending on where you are. It's 65% in Canada. It's between 50 and 80% in most other countries in the world. So 65 is a pretty good average. And that means that they are anywhere between food and housing insecurity, and that they simply can't live the life they had hoped to live when they retired. And they have to earn income. So this is not an optional. This is a have to make income to survive. But good luck getting a job. It's just not feasible, at least again in North America. If you're after 50, certainly 60, you just can't. The ageism is alive and well. I have a friend who applied, sent out over 400 resumes, went on 39 interviews so far over the course of a year. Obviously, 39 interviews means she's highly qualified, right for the position, and never even went back for second or third interviews, but never got it. And even though they can't say it was ageism, in every case, they put in a younger applicant. So it is very difficult. So that means they have to turn to entrepreneurialism to make money, some form of it, be it a side hustle, creating a nonprofit, creating a business, whatever that may be, which is a challenge for many people because they've come out of corporate, they've come out of growing up their whole lives with get a job, get an education, get a job, get a family, picket fence, retire. That whole myth is hurting us now. Retirement was created by Otto von Bismarck in the Industrial Revolution so he could get rid of older workers and bring in young workers he didn't have to pay as much.
I didn't know that.
It's still how it's being used. It doesn't have anything to do with the well-being of the individual. It has everything to do with the economics of the company. And it's at their detriment because older people in the workplace create a better morale because they have higher emotional intelligence, like statistically and proven. They tend to be more loyal. They don't turn over as fast. They'll stay with the company longer than millennials. So it's really short-sighted on the part of most organizations to not hire older people.
It's just an old way of thinking, right? It's just how things were, but our society is completely different to how it was before. But so it's a double handicap in a way for these people because A, they haven't known anything else than the corporate where you do what you're told, and your salary gets paid. But at the same time, there's the added thing that after 50 or 55, you also start, doubting, but will I know how to learn the skills? What about the tech? The changes are going so fast, I can't keep up. So you're also starting to have that almost ageist feeling yourself, aren't I a little bit, perished goods by now?
Yes. Well, society certainly reinforces that, and internal ageism is a big problem. There's a beautiful or wonderful book written by Ashton Applewhite called This Chair Rocks, a manifesto against ageism. To everybody of every age, especially if you're running an organization. And for those of us who are older, it really talks about ageism and especially internal ageism and the subtlety of it. It can be so insidious, the little things that we say to ourselves and to others, things like, you look good for your age.
Right. There's an added bit on the end.
Yes. What does that even mean? Like if you break it down and think about it, would you say that to someone who's 20 or like?
No. And also it's not fair because the way, as in before, 55 was very much starting to slow down and think the end. I mean, my grandmother, as I've mentioned before on the show, she's 98. I'm going to be 58. So, I've still got that many more years to go. We're not talking about sitting and thinking about the end. We need to create, and as you say, we do not have enough to retire. So it's then what do you do and how do you make it meaningful, I guess?
Exactly. Well, and the other 35%, so 65% can't afford to retire. Of the other 35%, this is really hard to get statistics on, but my best estimate from the research I've done is about 20% of those 35% don't want to retire because they want to continue to contribute, they want to continue to create a legacy, etc. So really, truly, only 15 to 20, maybe 25% of the population is actually retired. And yeah,
Yes,
that's all that people talk about in the media is either retired people or the drain we are on society,
exactly.
economically and otherwise. So I'll tell you, so the poverty epidemic, the loneliness epidemic, the two trends are the largest cohort of entrepreneurs to ever come into the business world is happening right now. That's because there's just under 1 billion of us worldwide that need to either continue to work or choose to work, and who are becoming entrepreneurs, and it's flooding the marketplace, but no one's serving us. Good luck
Right.
trying to get business insurance or
Yeah.
venture capital or bank loans or any of that, because this is a market that hasn't been seen much before,
Yeah.
is not understood, and is
And it's
not.
a new concept, right, isn't it? It's a new concept, but that our world needs because
Yeah,
there is no shortage of stuff that needs to be done, right? Or people that need to be
absolutely.
helped.
Well, on a bunch of fronts, we need the wisdom, we need the groundedness, we need the perspective, we need the emotional intelligence that older people bring, especially now in our society more than ever. We need that ability to connect and the contextual framing that they have. The innovation that we do is different than the innovation younger people do, but
Yeah.
we need both. They do
Yes.
innovation from a blank slate. We do innovation in context with an
Right.
understanding of impact. When we bring those two together, we create the most powerful innovation. So if you're missing either side of that equation, it's not helpful for organizations or the world. So biggest cohort of entrepreneurs ever, and the most affluent. So conversely, 65% can't afford to. The other 35% hold the most wealth in the hands of one cohort ever in history. Currently, boomers and Gen Xers hold 70%, 69.5% of the wealth in the world. And so they control 70% of the money. And yet again, I don't know about where you are, but in North America, the commercials are all for things like Depends, diapers, those chair lifts, Viagra,
Yeah.
that I generally think of for the very senior
Very
market.
old. Yes.
There isn't anything that's marketing
Yeah.
to the 80% of us that
Yeah.
are what I'm calling refiring, not retiring. And so they need to wake up to the fact that there is a huge market that wants to refire, not retire, and you could be marketing to us. So this is that perfect storm of opportunity. Is biggest cohort, ton of money, huge amount of need, and absolutely need to connect and be supported, and yet very few people are paying attention to that. And this market, like I said, is actually going to be the salvation of our economy in a way, because it used to be for every people coming into the market, 100 were leaving.
Okay.
Now, for every 100 leaving, 80 are coming in.
Right.
So we have an employee shortage, and it's
Yeah.
becoming more and more acute when you talk to organizations and so forth. Businesses are going under because they can't get
Yeah.
employees.
Yeah. We have that here too.
Yeah, and it was worse after COVID. No one wanted to go
Yeah.
back to work, and it's
Exactly.
escalating again because we have less people coming into the market after those that are leaving. These are people who want to work, who need to
Right.
work, and we have an employee shortage. Duh.
Perfect.
Have a problem and a solution, but people are not getting on to the fact that they can hire these people to fill these jobs, not just baristas and so forth, but corporate jobs and businesses in all different levels. So we can solve the employee crisis if employers got their head out of their butt, and we have this incredible amount of wealth that we could circulate in the economy and generate jobs. Because so many entrepreneurs are coming into the world, we're generating jobs. Entrepreneurship tends to be the economic engine that drives
Yeah.
the world. Most people think it's large organizations. It's not. A
Yeah.
small business employs the majority of the population in the world. And so this is a huge economic driver. And the fact that these people are working and inspired and passionate about what they're
Yeah.
doing and being purpose driven means they're going to be healthier. So they'll be less of an economic drain on
Drain the health
the
system.
health system, because they are motivated and so forth, and healthier. If they were the old model of retired and sitting there waiting to die, those
Yeah.
are balance, we
Yeah.
drink, we help
And
with
we're fit, we stay fit, we
yeah,
travel, we do all sorts of things. And I
exactly.
mean, that makes total sense to me. So basically, what do we need? We need to A, raise awareness about this group, and B, we need to be prepared for
Yes.
entrepreneurship.
Yes, absolutely. And really start to rethink what's possible because we've been sold this bill of goods that now you're done. The lady here in Calgary who I think is kind of the poster child for maturepreneurism. She's 89 now. She started her first tech business when she was 69, a data center. It's the largest data center run by a woman in North America. She's been running it for 20 years. She just took on an additional 20,000 square feet of space downtown Calgary to expand that business. And she's starting a tech business, a second tech business at 89. She's perhaps not typical, but she is more and more of
But she's also an example of what can. We limit ourselves with all these ideas that we can't do it. It's like
yeah,
everything. What was his name? Banter, the guy who proved that you could run faster than a
yeah,
certain amount without your heart exploding. You always
yeah,
need a first to say, this is all very much possible. And also, I mean, there are lots of advantages, in having people who have passed the child rearing age, etc. We're more available. There's no sick children at home or so
right.
there's a lot to be said. So what tips would you have for the listeners regarding all of that?
Okay, well, there's a bunch of them, but first of all, I would say if you aren't clear yet on your why, get clear on it. Get someone like me to help you with articulating what that is, because as you said earlier, Julie, when we were talking, it's what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's what gives you meaning and purpose in your life. It's what's inspiring to you and to others. Practically speaking, it also helps you align your strategy and design your life, the way you want it to be.
Yeah,
So that's very important.
yeah,
Okay, so the first step is that I would get really clear on your why. Talk to someone like me or someone who can really support you in clarifying what is your purpose. I tend not to use the word purpose or mission because those tend to be pretty laden terms, but why do you do what you do?
exactly. And it is useful to have somebody else because
Yeah,
we need that sparring partner to say, yeah, but what
exactly.
do you mean exactly? We need somebody to help us deepen it. Right.
And really to listen for the longing. It's just right on the end of our nose, so we can't see it. We need someone who can pull our hand back from the end of our nose so we can see what that is. And then use that to clarify your positioning.
We are approaching the end, right? So let's make sure
Yeah,
we get your tips in.
exactly. Okay, so find out your why. It gets you out of bed in the morning. It's really important, and get help with it because you can't read the label from inside the jar. You got to help and listen and help you figure out what that is. It's not what you do, it's why you do it. So that's
So
number
true.
one. Then use that to drive your strategy of your direction. Clarify your vision for your life so that you can build your business or whatever you're doing around your life, not the other way around.
Right. So you
Uh,
mean like how often do I want to work? Do I want to be in one place? As in, the basic questions, as in what do I want my working life to look like?
exactly, because we've been so much on default by other people's standards
Yeah.
and do's and shoulds. Now is the time not to live a life of have to and should, but only if you consciously create that.
Right.
And so, what is that vision for your life? What would be the life that you want to live? Because you
Right.
get to design it now, you get to choose. And yeah, we still have some have tos and shoulds. We need to make money, most of us,
Yeah.
etc. But we have the luxury of being able to be consciously creative now and make choices. And there are options to have what you want if you're willing to clarify what that is. Many people are so used to doing what they have to do, being for other people. When I ask, especially women, what do you want? What makes you happy? They kind of pause for a very long time
And
because
they're
they're
maybe not used to asking themselves that question. What makes
exactly,
everybody else happy, right?
yes,
I'm there to
yeah,
help the other one. But it is also very interesting what you say because it is also a total mindset. I mean, I see that a lot in the online business that I've joined. people are like, oh, but how can you just work when you want to work, where you want, all this freedom era sort of thing. People are a bit like, oh, it's got to be dodgy. It's too good to be true. It sounds, really weird. And I don't trust it because it's just something completely different. Whereas if COVID showed us something, the online market, it is a marketplace out there and you can reach even more people, but it does take a switch of, it doesn't have to be 9 to 5. It doesn't have to be always in the same place. I think we're not used to it, right? We're not used to enlarging our horizons so much.
And thinking about things differently. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So that's the part of the learning growth mindset. And that's one of the biggest things that will serve you well as you get older. Having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset.
right.
You can shift that. You can learn to have a growth mindset. So figure out your why, create your vision so that you can design your life the way you want it to be. And third, get support. We tend to be a generation that thinks that we'll do it ourselves, we'll figure it out, which is ironic because we came from an era of community where community was very important. But we still have now this real, own self do. I'll do it myself. And
Yeah, and it's almost like acknowledging that we're lacking in some way if we have to ask somebody else, right?
yes,
It's a sort of misplaced pride. Obviously, we can't do everything by ourselves, nor should
exactly.
we, right? We
Yeah,
should do what's good for us and what's aligned with us, and then
yeah.
somebody else can help you with the part that you're not so good at or help you develop it.
Exactly. And so figure out what you do love and what you don't. How do you bring in support for that? But also, frankly, TikTok, we got to get at this. Like, yes, we're older and we may still be working for 10, 20, 30 years for many
Right.
people, which is a wonderful opportunity. Some people just groan and go, oh my God, no. But
It depends if it's your why, right? If it's the reason
yes.
that gets you out of bed, you actually want to work.
Exactly. So we need support. Nobody who's successful, no one in the world did it on their own. And so we need to get over this lone wolf stuff because it's counterproductive and takes extra time to learn by trial and error. And we don't have the luxury of that time.
Yeah.
We need to expedite our impact and to create our legacy quickly, we need support.
And we
So
have the luxury also to have all of that support at our fingertips,
yeah,
right? It doesn't have to be whoever's around in your village. You can go online and see, okay, who is out there? Who do I resonate with? And as you said, I mean, I see all the leaders in my business as well. They all have coaches. They all have mentors. It's the first thing they say.
yeah.
Whatever level of zeros you have behind your income, you need that.
The more zeros, typically the more coaches and support they
Yeah,
have.
it's true.
Tiger Woods, one of the best golfers in the world, maybe not the best human being, but the best golfer. And he has, at a minimum, 4 coaches
Yeah.
who all times up to 7 when he's preparing for tournaments. So it really is about going from good to great in some cases. And in some cases, we really do have to mitigate our blind spots. So get support. When it comes to your why, there's a lot of different things that you can do to support yourself. I would be happy to offer any of your people a complimentary why session. It's actually the last time that I'm doing them complimentary. This year, I'm putting up a paid service for that, but I will give you a link. And what
Okay.
you do is contact me. We'll do a wise whisperer session, and it's to listen for that longing and that purpose. And one of the things that you can kind of start to get some clues is if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and change one thing about yourself, other people, or the world, what would that be? What do you rant about? And if you think you don't rant, just ask your friends and family you do.
Exactly. No.
What do you rant about? Chances are that's something you want to fix in the world. And just listen to those things. And what are some of the significant events from your childhood that were really meaningful and impactful to you? Often traumatic, not always, but often. And what was the story you made up about
Right.
yourself, the people, or the world at that time? Because, like I said, your why is the intersection of what you're healing from the past and what you long for the future for yourself and others. And when we have that clarity, then we need to lead with that. It helps us differentiate in the marketplace. It's what people buy. They buy why you do what you do
It's your
now.
authentic self,
No,
right? It's what
yeah,
makes you different.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so use it in your about us. Use it in your marketing, use it in your positioning, use it to drive your strategy and your life decisions.
You're making me
That,
excited just listening to it. I think I will do a why session too, because I think
yes,
we can always, even those of us who have been fortunate, there's always more, right? There's
yes.
always more that you can peel away. And I will make sure, so we are talking about getting the support that we want. So before I round off for today, you also coach online?
I
Right,
do.
well, there we are. That's
coaching
wonderful.
and coaching and programs and workshops. Oh my. So yes, if people would like to contact me, they can go to maturepreneur.world. I also have a membership community that's really affordable, wonderful, wonderful amount of support to help you get clear, get going, or keep going, depending on what stage you're at.
Yes, no, there's nothing else I want to say after all of that. So I will make sure for everyone listening in that I have all this information in the show notes. And I mean, Jeanette is just a living embodiment of the not done by a long shot. And I love that approach. And that's what makes our life joyful, right? There's hope. We're looking forward. We're not just moaning about the past or just worrying about changes. So thank you very much for this very empowering session, Jeanette. And
Thanks.
I encourage all of you to reach out to Jeanette, do that why session, because that really is the fire in your soul, right? So that's what runs your life. All the very best to all of you. And Jeanette, I hope to have you back another time. I think there's a lot more we could share here. All the
Thank you,
best.
Julie. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.